They really told me to tap in. Next day I was supposed to clear and look at my account, yo.
The latest trend is going to get some of these TikTokers sent to jail, and I could not have less sympathy for them. A big announcement, an insane TikTok trend, a columnist calls for Elon Musk to be locked up, Trump makes waves with a marijuana policy announcement, a gender-fluid TikTok, and so much more. All that's coming up on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and across our politics, all from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around, and regardless, do hit that like button as we go along and do comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments and I pick a few to respond to in every episode, and I'll definitely pick your comment to respond to if you leave it with a super thanks. Now today we're going to talk about a crazy TikTok trend that could end up getting some of these influencers literally put behind bars, and it's insane, and I have so much to say about it. But first, just a quick announcement. You guys have been asking, and I have heard you, and I've been putting in the work with the help of my boyfriend, actually, who's really good at this stuff and really into the details, and we now have merch options. The link will be in the show notes to purchase some of this stuff. We've got a Your Math Isn't Mathing mug. We've got a beautiful Your Delulu is Showing crew neck, and of course a Delulu is Showing mug, and so many other things. The link to the store will be in the description. Go check it out. Please do place some orders because my boyfriend put a lot of time into this and it needs to be worth it for him. And guys, I know this stuff isn't super cheap, but getting it and shipping it is actually way more expensive than you'd think, and just think of it as a great way to support the channel while getting some cool and funny merch while you're at it. We are going to work on bringing you a put down the crack pipe item, but that one's a little harder to get approved, shall we say. Anyway, the link to that is in the description, so go check it out if you want, and you can help support the show. Now, let's talk about TikTok, the hellscape of an app that is constantly sapping me of whatever remaining hope I have for my generation. Because now, some people on TikTok started this idiotic trend where they thought they identified a glitch with Chase banking, and they were encouraging people to go take advantage of this glitch, but turns out it's just criminal fraud, it's just check fraud, and many of them may get arrested. So here's a video of people celebrating their participation in the Chase glitch.
To the town, and I need you, and I miss you, and now I wonder, and you know I walk 1,000 miles, just say you.
Does this look like a good idea to you? And even if you were somehow tempted to do this, is doing something potentially illegal and live streaming it or posting it to TikTok really the best strategy? Now, of course, guys, it's not working out for all of them. So here's one fellow with a follow-up video showing that his balance has been subtracted from the money that he was originally able to swindle Chase out of using check fraud, as encapsulated in this viral Chase glitch trend that isn't actually a glitch, it's just a crime. But anyway, it didn't work out for many of these individuals, so here's one video explaining the fallout.
Fuck, man. They really told me to tap in. Next day I was supposed to clear and look at my account, yo. Bro, what the...
So in all actuality, a negative bank balance, subtracting the amount they tried to scam Chase out of, is the least of these people's problems, because what they appear to be doing as part of this trend is actually just a form of check fraud, a crime in every state, and in many cases punishable with jail time. The New York Post has the story, and they report TikTokers are trying to exploit a Chase Bank glitch and discovering it comes at a huge cost. A new TikTok trend has people posting their attempts to exploit a glitch in Chase Bank ATMs that offers, quote, infinite free money but quickly learning that a bank and its money are not so easily parted. Experts say the glitch videos look an awful lot like check fraud, one of the oldest scams in the book. Videos urging customers at the bank to take advantage of the glitch quickly took off online, prompting people to deposit fake checks for large sums of money. The glitch would credit some of the sham deposits to the customer's accounts before the checks cleared. So essentially, people were writing themselves checks they knew they couldn't cash and then getting an advance on it from the Chase ATM before it cleared and bounced. So, check fraud. Chase quickly fixed the bug and is clawing back any money doled out to people who didn't deserve it. A spokesperson for Chase Bank told the Post, "Consumers should be skeptical, and if something seems too good to be true, it likely is. We are aware of this incident and it has been addressed. Regardless of what you see online, depositing a fraudulent check and withdrawing the funds from your account is fraud, plain and simple," the spokesperson added. The people who took advantage of the glitch were soon reporting that their accounts were locked and hit with massive negative balances. You guys, you get the idea. All these people making these exuberant videos showing themselves rolling around with money are not, in fact, geniuses who somehow managed to break our banking system with their ingenuity. They're garden variety idiots who accidentally or knowingly or not engaged in a criminal act and then posted it online for the world and for police and prosecutors to see. Many of them will face consequences for this. The money will be clawed back. You're not getting away with tens of thousands of dollars for free from a bank. And more importantly, many of them may face criminal charges and end up with serious fines or penalties or even jail time. It is a serious offense to commit check fraud in many states. And to me, this whole thing just showed so many problems with the internet and with Gen Z and this entire generation and the subculture that it's built up on this app, on TikTok, but on the internet more broadly. One problem is just an issue of people being way too gullible, way too credulous, and not checking the things they see online or not having the baseline amount of skepticism you think an adult would possess that, maybe just getting 30 or 40 grand out of thin air isn't realistic and there's got to be a catch here or something illegal or off about this, because why else would that just be happening? Maybe I should double check this. Nope, just I saw someone on TikTok do it, so I'm gonna run out and do it. Like, seriously? That's the absolute state of the internet, of at least some people on it, I guess, that we're just mindless sheeple who do insane stuff like this now with little thought for the consequences. The second big problem I have with this is how it shows. Many people, although it's certainly not all people, I think most people still have enough common sense not to get caught up in this kind of insanity, but many people really do want something for nothing. They really do want free money. They think naively that they're entitled to somehow get by in life or have nice things without actually working or earning them. And guess what, babe? You're not. Nobody is. And there is no such thing as a free lunch. Okay? So if you want $40,000, you're going to have to get out there and work and hustle and offer some value to the world. There is no, despite what social media idiots might misleadingly claim, there is no get rich free card. There is no, you may pass go and collect $200,000. That's not how the real world works, at least not most of the time. And if you want nice things, you're actually going to have to put in the work and earn them. I'm sorry, but it just is disturbing to me, the number of people who really are like this, so gullible, and then also just constantly looking for a way to get by and get ahead without actually putting in the work. It's not a recipe for success, guys. It's just not. The other observation I have about this trend, aka crime wave, is that it's another thing where like Gen Z thinks they've discovered something that's actually been around for a really long time, but they just call it something new and act like it's a brand new thing. Like this isn't a glitch. It's just garden variety check fraud that's somehow been enabled by some bug in an ATM. But they thought they discovered something new. They thought they reinvented the world. These TikTokers really did think they were having their big one. They were in their Galileo era of discovering new territories. So, but more often than not, in fact, almost always, the new revelations that Gen Z has when they call something a trend and they put a new label on it is actually just an old concept that has existed for a long time that they've just now discovered and are putting a new name on. But and maybe this is true for every generation, but there's just kind of a youthful arrogance to it. Like, it's not actually a new thing, and they do this all the time. I want to see accountability. I really do. I want to see the ringleaders of this stupid movement actually do at least a little bit of jail time for this kind of thing, because they're having a corrosive impact. They're leading young people astray into causing huge problems, and they are defrauding their communities and defrauding financial institutions, and they're eroding the trust that undergirds our society and is really important for it to function. It's not a laughing matter. It's not a funny trend, just like other things, like the Tide Pod challenge. Like, a lot of this stuff is funny. It's a meme. It's whatever. It's not that deep, but some of it is deep, and some of it is really bad and really dark and has serious ramifications. And if there's no accountability for it, if they just slap them with fines, but they don't actually arrest people, they just give them a pass, well, they'll keep doing it. So I do want to see some accountability for it. And more importantly, I'll just leave you with a little bit of parenting advice. Don't let your kids use TikTok, or at the very least, equip them with the tools to not be so credulous and gullible as to follow and fall into this kind of nonsensical, ridiculous, and criminal trend. You guys let me know what you think of this crazy story in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button while you're at it. And now, speaking of crazy, we've got to talk about a truly deranged Guardian columnist named Robert Reich, who just wrote an article calling for Elon Musk to be locked up by the authorities because he doesn't like the things he says and shares online. That's right, guys. I know it sounds like an exaggeration. It sounds like a straw man. Nope. The former Labor Secretary and the very prominent progressive activist and online commentator Robert Reich is now out in The Guardian calling for Elon Musk to be locked up. And ironically enough, doing so while claiming to be against authoritarianism. The cognitive dissonance is unreal. So in this op-ed published Friday, Robert Reich writes, "Elon Musk is out of control. Here's how to rein him in." And he puts the caption as, "He may be the richest man in the world, but that doesn't mean we're powerless to stop him." Now I want to show you guys how Robert opens up this article, because it becomes hilarious as we go on. He writes, "Elon Musk is rapidly transforming his enormous wealth, he's the richest person in the world, into a huge source of unaccountable political power that's now backing Trump and other authoritarians around the world." So hold that note, guys. Robert Reich is really concerned about authoritarianism. He's really anti-authoritarian. And that's why he wants governments to lock people up for their ideas and speech. He writes, "Regulators around the world should threaten Musk with arrest if he doesn't stop disseminating lies and hate on X. Global regulators may be on the way to doing this," Robert Reich writes, as evidenced by the 24 August arrest in France of Pavel Durov, who founded the online communications tool Telegram, which French authorities have found complicit in hate crimes and disinformation. Like Musk, Durov has styled himself as a free speech absolutist. Wow. Just wow. So we have the anti-authoritarian Robert Reich saying that Musk should be arrested by the authorities overseas because he allows bad ideas or misinformation or hate speech or whatever to be spread on a communications platform. Babe, the authoritarian is you. Look in the mirror. Lies and hate are an inevitable part of freedom of expression, because you can't have one central authority determine what's a lie and what counts as hate. Those are fundamentally subjective characterizations. I mean, what Reich is calling for here would literally mean you'd have government boards of truth arresting people for false things. That is Orwellian, and that word gets overused, right? But it genuinely does resemble the world in the books of George Orwell, of 1984, of Animal Farm, this kind of dystopian vision of the world where central authorities crack down on people for just the words they say. But what's so hilarious to me about this is that Robert Reich himself is a purveyor of lots of controversial ideas and information. He pushes socialist far-left propaganda that is often factually incorrect, and he's gotten just recently fact-checked brutally on Twitter. Should he be arrested for disseminating lies on X? I certainly don't think so, because I believe in the freedom of speech. But by his own logic, yeah, this dude should be put behind bars. In the same way, what's hatred is fundamentally subjective. So if he really were to open this door and say government should arrest people who spread hate online, well, guess what, babe? A lot of right-wing government leaders hate what you say online. So how is that one going to work out for you if they take your advice? We've got this real problem in our society of people just refusing to think more than a few steps ahead, not thinking that the powers they're advocating for or the things they say they want will eventually be used by the other side too, not just by their own side. It's an incredibly naive and short-sighted way of looking at the world, but it's so common. And it's pervasive, not just in this one op-ed, but in so much of progressive advocacy on policy and in particular on censorship. And Robert Reich isn't just saying that this should happen overseas. He's actually advocating for this kind of censorship right here in the US. First Amendment be damned. He writes, in the United States, the Federal Trade Commission should demand that Musk take down lies that are likely to endanger individuals. And if he does not, sue him under Section 5 of the FTC Act. Reich continues, Musk's free speech rights under the First Amendment don't take precedence over the public interest. They literally do. That's the point of the First Amendment. Go off, I guess. He continues, 2 months ago, the U.S. Supreme Court said federal agencies may pressure social media platforms to take down misinformation, a technical win for the public good, technical because the court based its ruling on the plaintiff's lack of standing to sue. So that gets confusing, and it's a little bit of a tangent there, but that court case he's referencing has nothing to do with the thing we're talking about. That's whether agencies can request companies to take down speech. It is not whether they can force them to. Pretty much everyone agrees they can't force them to take down First Amendment protected speech, which is what he's advocating the FTC do. You can't do that. That's unconstitutional. And again, think 5 seconds ahead, Robert, about what a future Republican president could do with that power to left-wing online voices like you. The math here is not mathing. That you think you're going to have this broad sweeping government censorship power, but it's only going to ever be able to be used by the people you like? Really? That's not how it works in a democracy, in a political system where the people choose their leaders and it changes every few years. That's why we've got to have freedom of speech for everybody. No matter how much you hate them or how harmful you think their lies are, those are the rules of the game in a free society. And if you don't like that, I suggest you move somewhere where your ideas are more popular. Maybe China, Iran, or Russia. You guys, let me know what you think of this absolutely wild argument from Robert Reich in the comments below. And now, let's talk about Donald Trump, because he just made some waves by breaking with Ron DeSantis and other Republicans and throwing his support behind a marijuana legalization measure in Florida. Let's go to local outlet News4Jax for more.
Former President Donald Trump says he supports Florida's Amendment 3 to legalize recreational marijuana. Mr. Trump wrote a post on the platform Truth Social this morning, stating in part, whether people like it or not, this will happen through the approval of the voters, so it should be done correctly. But he also said it is important to create laws that prohibit its use in public spaces so that we don't smell marijuana, he says, everywhere we go. Mr. Trump will vote as a Floridian this November, meaning he will get a say in the Amendment 3 as well. Mr. Trump's opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, became the first major party presidential nominee to advocate for marijuana legalization.
So what exactly does Amendment 3 say? Here's a portion of the ballot summary. It allows adults 21 years or older to possess, purchase, or use marijuana products and marijuana accessories for non-medical personal consumption by smoking, ingestion, or otherwise. That means anyone over the age of 21 would be allowed to buy and use marijuana recreationally as long as they don't exceed possession limits. A vote yes would mean you agree people over the age of 21 should be allowed to use marijuana recreationally. A vote no means you don't agree. The amendment needs 60% of the voters to say yes to pass. If it passes, Florida would become the 25th state to legalize recreational marijuana. 8 years ago, Florida voters approved the use of medicinal marijuana, with 71% of voters saying yes.
So this is controversial because other Republicans like Ron DeSantis are going against this ballot initiative and do not support marijuana legalization in Florida. But for me, it's a pretty simple call. And I think Trump, not DeSantis or these other Republicans who want to continue the war on pot, I think Trump is in the right here. You don't have to like marijuana. You don't have to smoke marijuana. You can advocate against people doing it. But if you believe in a free society, that's got to extend to adults' rights to engage in pastimes that you maybe don't agree with, or to ingest things in their body that you wouldn't personally ingest in yours. Now, I do think there are some problems with marijuana legalization that haven't gone well in some of the states that have done it. One, for example, is something Trump hints at. I think I would agree with the idea of restricting the use of marijuana in public. Smoke at home, smoke in designated marijuana places, but we shouldn't want that out on the streets in front of everybody, and we shouldn't want to have to smell it everywhere, kind of like with alcohol. I mean, I've always said for a long time, I think marijuana should just be treated similarly to alcohol, which is causes way more deaths and way more harm, but is totally legal, while marijuana for a long time has been illegal. It's never made any sense to me. But you can't just drink in the public and sit in the middle of the street and get super drunk and vomit all over everybody. You have to be in a bar or at home or somewhere else where it's allowed to do that. And I think having similar restrictions when you're going through the legal marijuana process can help, and help you avoid some of the scenarios like you have in New York City, where just the stench of pot, which is not my favorite smell, I will say, becomes ever present and that kind of thing. The other thing you have to do is you have to keep taxes low and the regulations low so these businesses can get going. Otherwise, you end up like California, which has a legal option, but still has a huge black market and criminal enterprise because the taxes are so high, the regulations are so stringent, they made it so hard to actually start a marijuana business that you end up still having a black market, which defeats the whole point. Because one of the main arguments for marijuana legalization, just as a pragmatic thing, even if you don't personally like or support marijuana, is that having it done, it will happen one way or the other, and having it done in a black market is dangerous and unhealthy and unsafe. For example, people might accidentally smoke marijuana that's laced with fentanyl that they buy from some dealer who maybe doesn't even know himself what's in it. That doesn't happen when you actually go to regulated, above board, legal stores, or at least it happens exponentially more infrequently. That's a good thing from a public health perspective. And again, for me, the issue just comes down to individual liberty and freedom. I think Trump's making the right call here, and that he should also take a similar approach to the federal level if he does become president again. Totally get the laws off the books, banning it federally, and let states decide. Because right now we have this bizarre patchwork where even in states where it's legal, it's technically still illegal federally, even though it's not enforced. So it causes all sorts of complications for businesses and the banking sector and all that. We've really got to sort that out. That's just a hot mess of a way to be doing this. So I'm glad Trump is coming around on this issue. He has opposed legalization in the past, I think. And it is ironic to me that Ron DeSantis, who calls himself the freedom governor and really has painted himself as a pro-liberty kind of guy, does not think that your basic liberty extends to the consumption of a plant he doesn't like. Make it make sense? You just can't. You guys let me know who you agree with in the comments below, and do hit that like button while you're at it. Up next, it's time for Brad vs. TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slugs.
Buckle up, because this one's going to be a wild ride. We're checking out a TikToker explaining her experience with gender fluidity, and it's quite the trip.
Here are some examples of my gender fluidity being a little bitch. Number 1, feeling like a guy and visiting my relatives. I don't know if you know this, but I am not out to my family. Therefore, when I'm feeling like a guy but I have to present super feminine in front of my relatives, it makes me feel icky inside. Also, gender dysphoria is a bit. Number 2, when suddenly my gender decides to change right before bed. I'll just be vibing, and then it'll be like, binder time. No, Michael, it's not binder time, it's bedtime. Binder time. Number 3, in the frickin' middle of the day. I'll be walking all happily along, and then suddenly, boom, gender change. No, now is not the time, Michael. I have a day to run. I don't need this dysphoria right now. Most of the time, I won't have the resources or capabilities to reduce the gender dysphoria because I didn't bring along with me a hat or a binder or makeup if it's the other way around. So it's a bitch. It's a real bitch.
First, I want to be clear about something. Absolutely no bullying or harassment or shade to this person whatsoever. I'm talking about this and covering this video for educational purposes, so you guys can see what's spreading on TikTok and the kind of emotional and psychological duress that many members of Gen Z are experiencing because of gender ideology. I do not want and I don't support anyone being mean or unkind to the people I cover in my videos, so don't do that. Okay, this is for educational purposes, none of that. If anything, people like this deserve our profound sympathy. They're clearly going through it, and they've been hopelessly led astray by a generation of adults and a generation of online influencers that have pushed harmful and nonsensical and incoherent ideas that are billed as solutions, but actually just end up with young people who are hopelessly distressed and confused, like this poor young woman. I mean, her video really does make clear the true, utter incoherence of extreme gender ideology. I mean, what the heck does it mean to feel like a guy at a certain moment? You can't explain that without engaging in extremely crude gender stereotypes. You're not suddenly a biological male. You don't suddenly feel your chromosomes feel different. That's not it. So what does it mean? It means she wants to wear a hat or not have makeup on or other things that she explains in this video. Babe, you might not realize it. In fact, I'm sure you don't realize it, but you're doing sexism. You're assigning things to the sexes and the genders that are just stereotypes. It's fine to be a female who wants short hair and wears a hat and doesn't like makeup, but that doesn't make you a boy. It makes you just a female who's a little different. The idea of gender itself or gender identity in this extreme worldview is just incoherent. It's just becoming meaningless. It essentially means personality at this point, I think. But babe, your personality shouldn't be shifting like this. It shouldn't be randomly shifting before bed or doing a 180 in the middle of the day while you're out and about. Like, that's not normal. And I'm not saying this to be mean, again, but you should speak to somebody about that. You should work on that. That's probably some sort of condition you need to resolve and address. It's not a identity or a demographic trait in the way of just like being gay is. And that's part of what bothers me about videos like this. No matter how much sympathy I have for the individuals involved, you are conflating incoherent nonsense with our identities and our legitimacy as gay people, because it's all unfortunately been lumped under this LGBTQIA plus alphabet umbrella. Well, now people will see this kind of thing and they'll associate it with me when it has nothing to do with me. It literally has nothing in common with being gay and being same-sex attracted and just wanting to live your life and have your family and be. It has nothing to do with this, but it's all being conflated and people feel like they have to accept it all or accept none of it. And so the world's turning against, at least parts of it, are turning against the LGBT community because they haven't gatekept. And gatekeeping is actually good. It's ironically used as like a dirty word in woke circles, but it's actually good. It is moral and just and right to gatekeep incoherence and insanity out of your movement if your goal is to achieve acceptance and tolerance for that movement. Of course it is. But hey, when you don't gatekeep, you end up with this kind of nonsensical stuff lumped into your activist movement, and people dismiss your entire cause and your entire community as a result. That's really harmful for the people involved who are being confused hopelessly by incoherent ideological nonsense, and for the people who are being caught up in it, the everyday normal LGBTs who just want to fit in and live their lives, who are being ridiculed by association with this kind of stuff. And again, just a little bit of parenting advice. Do not let your kids on TikTok. Don't let them be exposed to this kind of thing. And if you do, make sure that you're having conversations with them about it. You're highlighting legitimate resources. You're explaining this stuff to them so they don't just, as impressionable young minds, fall victim to this predatory ideology that tells people there's a hope for them and that if they just adopt this identity, then they'll feel better about everything. And then when they don't, they just go deeper into it. It's really, really sad stuff. My heart goes out to this individual, and my heart goes out to everybody who's been led astray by extreme gender activism. It really is toxic stuff, and we've got to return, not to trad ultra conservatism, gender roles. No. We've got to return to saying that there's two biological sexes, but people, can live however they want, right? If you're a male, you don't need to be masculine. It's okay to be effeminate. If you're a female, you don't need to wear makeup. You don't have to have ponytails. You don't need to like pink. None of that. Get rid of all the gender stereotypes nonsense and just let people be. But you guys, you let me know what you think in the comments below of this interesting video. All right, now it's time to read a few of your comments before we wrap up today's show. One person writes, Brad, I have a question pertaining to a video you did a couple of days ago. Why do you think that so many companies and corporations are woke? Well, I actually have an interesting theory, and I want to know what you guys think about this. Essentially, my theory is that we've seen the Democratic Party move to the left on economics a lot. So like if you look at even Hillary Clinton in 2012 or in 2008 or even 2016, she was way more conservative on economics than the Democratic Party today. So we've seen a socialistic wing of the Democratic Party that wants to destroy and punish the rich and businesses and everything. And I think a lot of these businesses thought that if they pandered to Democrats on social issues, they could escape the economic wrath of the far left. Now, I think they've realized that that isn't true. They'll just eat you and then eat you more. Like, they're not going to be assuaged by just identity pandering. They're still coming for you. But that may have been the strategy behind it. It just hasn't worked out well at all. Another person says, I think many of us came here from your Michael Knowles debate, so I guess the bot was calling you an extra in the Daily Wire movie. Ouch, I wouldn't take that from a machine, but I would from you, Brad. Keep up the goodish work. Well, thank you. I'm glad you think my work is goodish. Maybe I could earn higher praise than that at some point. But yeah, I think a lot of people did come from that debate. And it is interesting to me how big a platform the folks of the Daily Wire have. And I do view their I disagree with them on a lot of their ideas, but their business model, got to give it to them. It's working out well for them. Another person says, I'm so genuinely tired of the JD Vance couch thing. I'm not even a fan of the dude, but I'm just so sick of the unnecessary childishness of it. It really tempts me to tweet about the time that Kamala admitted to tongue-kissing a Persian cat when she was in high school. Well, yeah, and if you did that, and if you were a journalist or a Republican politician, they would scream misinformation, fake news, and they'd be right. But then they don't have that same energy when it comes to JD Vance and the couch. I mean, if Democrats and if progressive media elites did not have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. Another person writes, I think people on TikTok are trying to outdo each other on how ridiculous they can be, follow the other sheep, or both. It shocks me that these people can vote. I ask myself this sometimes. Is the internet making people more insane, or have there always been insane people out there, but we just never saw them or heard about them, and now the internet is making us aware of them? And I think my answer is both. All right, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button. Do comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments, and I always pick a few to respond to. If you leave it with a super thanks, I'll definitely respond to it. And do check out the merch store. I will link it in the description of this episode. And with that, we'll talk again tomorrow.